Hello and welcome everybody, and thank you guys for joining me again. My name is Wilkie and we're gonna be talking about the Doombringer in detail. I will explain the nerfs and buffs that it received, why your damage may have dropped down considerably, and a few options of how to actually bypass this or try and fix your build. Now first things first, we're gonna talk about the actual stats that have changed, and the most important part here is the weapon feature. They reduced the bullseye trigger chance to 30% down from 65. However, when you're closer than 5 meters or within 5 meters of your target, this chance has been raised to 80%. So as long as you're fairly close to your target, there wouldn't be many changes in this regard. However, once we actually go further than this, you can see that our statistical chance is going to be lower. It still is proccing relatively often, but definitely not as many times as we used to before. Just for reference, if you put down a marker, you can see the difference or the distance if you hover over the little icon here. So you can see this is about as much as we can be away from the target, which isn't a whole lot, and my nitpick here is I think 8 meters would be better, because there are some bosses that have very strange hit and hurt boxes, and sometimes they will just push you away because they have a very weird hitbox. So I think altering this and increasing this to like 8 meters would be a bit better in order to not just be physically pushed away from a target and not being able to get within those 5 meters. Other than that, there hasn't been any change to this specific aspect here, but this is obviously a nerf, and this one is a direct nerf to the Doombringer, but there's a lot of more things that happened in the patch that will or did reduce the damage that we were able to dish out with the Doombringer. The next thing that I want to talk about is suppression. Now this is a relatively hidden stat, and I think a lot of people aren't really sure about this, but essentially suppression, which is the little purple icon here with the little teal or greenish suppression label, lets you deal more damage against deviants. Monolith bosses did count as deviants before the update, so we had a built-in bonus damage. I personally don't know how much. Some people said it's 25%, which is quite huge, but it may be. I don't have numbers on this. In essence, though, you will now be dealing less damage to Monolith bosses because they are no longer deviants. So this is not a direct nerf to the Doombringer, but since Doombringer is a weapon that has suppression, this is also another thing that will affect your performance going forward. Now, since we already talked about the chance, or rather reduction of bullseye applications, since we're running, or I personally was running the old Huntsman boots, we already have less damage, so to speak, on average, and old Huntsman's boots as well were changed. Prior to the change, marking a target, it didn't matter what you were hitting afterwards, you would always score a weak spot. And you can see that this is no longer the case. This is a marked target, so once I have the buff, I will score a weak point. Now let me get the buff again. You can see at the bottom there, once I get this icon that doesn't go away, I have now a weak spot hit loaded, so to speak, right? If you were to check this, and you can see this, bullet bonus, the next one shot will count as a weak spot, even if you do not hit the actual weak spot of the enemy. This only applies to marked targets now. So if I get the weak spot buff, and I hit a marked target, this one is marked, I get a weak spot. If I hit another target, it will no longer apply. This was mainly directed for PvP. It doesn't really change all that much in PvE. It only really matters when you're switching constantly, or rather when you're clearing ads, which really doesn't really affect your performance there. And for the most part, the boss is probably going to be marked anyway, so this doesn't result in a whole lot of damage loss, but it definitely is there. For this one, obviously, the very biggest contender is, where is it? I don't actually have them crafted, are the Earthly Boots. Now, for paper DPS, Earthly Boots were flat out always better than Huntsman Boots. The Huntsman Boots, or Seasoned Hunter Leather Boots, which they're called in this menu, are just so good, or were, or used to be so good, because they allowed you to not care about actual weak spot aiming and just blast away at the target. Now, for your build, I highly recommend trying out Earthly Boots, especially since most of you guys should have this just by clearing all the mystical crates. You don't actually have to buy these. In case you don't have them, open all the crates. You should be having enough fragments to unlock these boots. Needless to say, there is one big change, or rather one elephant in the room, and that has to do with how reload speeds and everything are calculated. Now, in order to get to the stat window, you press K or open your gear menu, you right-click on your gun, you go to accessory, you right-click on your accessory, and then you press I to get into this window. Now, I think this is insanely stupid that this is so convoluted, so this is a quick rant. I would much rather have this available somewhere quick and accessible, because this is where some of the magic here is happening. So what they did is all these values go from 1 or maybe even 0 to 100. So you cannot go over 100 on this. I can show you this better, for example, on my memento, that if you were to change a few of these things, we cannot exceed 100. So 100 is the maximum stat that you can get on all of these values. Now, the lightweight calibration is one of the secret ingredients that a lot of people were using for the Doombringer. This calibration increases your reload speed by 150% while reducing your magazine capacity. We had to use 7.2 mag capacity increase to get back to 2 bullets while getting the full hefty reload speed of 150%. Now, since they capped this, your calibration itself is already exceeding this value. Remember, 100 is the maximum that we can get here. And if we just do a quick math here, 57 times 1.5, this would be the value, and adding this to the base value, you would get to 142.5 reload speeds. So instantly, you exceed this value by 42 points with just the calibration. So a lot of the calibration is actually lost, almost 50% of it, making it a questionable choice if you do not change your build around. Now, I personally think this is an oversight because it also, for example, hurts the dual fury or any dual barrel shotgun if you were to use the lightweight calibration, which I think a lot of people use because it's super fun to use. And I think this nerf is really making the gun feel relatively clunky, because you can see that the reload speed has been increased quite significantly, or rather the duration it takes is now much longer than it used to be. This is personally, I think, actually what hurts the gun the most, because a lot of the builds were actually aimed around getting that 7.2 magazine increase, and then just get 2 bullets, super fast reload speeds, and, you know, just go full ham with the reloads. However, there are 2 options on top of changing the boots that I personally recommend trying out. This is very specific towards the build you're using. I cannot give you a recommendation what's better because I haven't tested it and I don't have all the mods and all the weapons to test this. But what you can do is switch out your helmet mod for mag expansion and then get an additional amount of magazine capacity. And I just need to find the mod. Give me 1 second. There we go. So now, while still having the lightweight calibration, when we completely empty our magazine, we now have 3 bullets. So this obviously increases our DPS quite a bit. If we were just to give you some number crunches here, you can see that our DPS is higher if we were to just dunk these 1-downs and just go in there and or drop this mod for... This mod doesn't really do any damage, so we're just gonna drop it. And now we're having 2 bullets again. Okay, I'm not sure why the hell that didn't hit. Let's do a different target here. New game. Obviously, the initial hit of DPS is going to be higher, but you can already see that our DPS is dropping because of the hefty reload speeds. So there is this opportunity to try and build your items around getting more mag capacity to get 3 bullets, or another alternative, which is something I have not tried. There is a calibration that would allow you... I actually don't have it, give me 1 second. There is a calibration for shotguns that does allow you to... heavy style that increases your mag capacity but reduces your reload speed further. Now, as I said, I have not actually DPS tested these things yet, so this is something that I have to do, or rather I recommend everybody to do themselves, because depending on your substats, depending on your mods, depending on the armors that you're running, things may be looking different. For example, I'm using Renegade Mask and Bastille Helmet. There's people that are going to be using Lone Wolf or other pieces, and some armor pieces have magazine capacity increase. So depending on your items, depending on your build, your adjustments may need to be looking different. So TLDR, the Doombringer isn't completely unusable, but the way I personally use it, and some other people did use it in the past, no longer is super effective. So I highly recommend adjusting your builds and just trying out a few things. It's still usable, yes. It lost some of its glory, and technically some of the nerfs didn't directly target the Doombringer, but hurt them more than most other guns. So yeah, that's just what it really is. So far, for the patch notes, I will be heading towards the Hound, and I'll catch you guys there. Okay, Hound, level 60 promote, and this will be a showcase of why I think that the reload is really the main issue of things here. And that was actually one volley too much, but that's okay. And yeah, you can very easily tell soon that the reload speed is hamstringing this gun like mad. So this is why I personally think that getting more shots into the magazine is probably the best way to get around the nerfs. Other than that, damage is still okay. Remember, we lost the suppression bonus stat, so that is obviously a thing. And why the hell? Oh shit. I want to get healed. Did we break the armor or did we not break the armor? Yeah, we did. Good. Come on, jump up. Now this one can be quite scary. Get closer. Maybe we can skip directly into the second phase, I don't know. Probably not. Depends on how good our RNG is. Nope. Oh, that's okay. You can see the fight is taking longer, and the fight is getting more and more annoying because of the increased duration. Because we need to deal with these threats longer than we typically used to. And just trying to stay close to the doggy is actually quite a bit of a nuisance. So get rid of those guys. Are we gonna run at me? Yep. Give me your shoulder. Okay. Buff ourselves up. Yep. Wrong gun. Oh my goodness. This may be scary. Come on. Thank you. Goodness. Holy damn. This is like the worst showcase of gameplay or anything with how many times we actually jumped onto the Hound. But yes, I think it's very adamant that the Doombringer lost a lot of its glory. It's still usable, just not... I lost count on how many times I tried to mount the Hound. Anyone? But yeah, you can see it's still there, it's still usable, it's not useless, but it needs work, it needs change, and overall it definitely is weaker than it used to be. I think that was like a 2-minute run, I'm not entirely sure. As I said, it's still there. But yeah. IMO tried to work around the reload stuffs, and I will maybe make an updated version of my guide once I have the right mods and everything in place. But for now, I definitely think check out if you can maybe get a 3-bullet loadout, and maybe try and switch the Seasoned Hunter boots for the Earthly boots, which most of you should have anyway. Anyways, I hope this was helpful and insightful and allows you to understand why things are the way they are. And I will see you guys next time.